Question 1. A global financial institution transitioning from ISO 27001, 2013 to the 2022 version has identified a significant increase in sophisticated ransomware attacks targeting cloud-based collaboration tools. While the 2013 standard had controls for asset management and access control, these did not specifically address the unique vulnerabilities of multi-tenant cloud environments and the evolving tactics of ransomware actors. Considering the updated control framework in ISO 27001, 2022, which of the following actions best represents the organization's approach to implementing controls to address this new threat landscape? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment to identify specific cloud vulnerabilities and ransomware tactics. Then select and implement relevant controls from the organizational, people, physical, and technological themes in Annex of ISO 27001-2022, updating the statement of applicability accordingly. Option B. Revert to the 2013 Annex of Controls for Asset Management and Access Control, assuming they provide sufficient coverage for cloud environments, and focus solely on enhancing existing anti-malware solutions. Option C. Prioritize the implementation of all new controls introduced in ISO 27001-2022 without a specific risk assessment, believing that a broader control set inherently mitigates emerging threats. Option D. Focus exclusively on physical security controls and employee awareness training, as the primary concern is the human element and physical access to infrastructure supporting cloud services. Correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment to identify specific cloud vulnerabilities and ransomware tactics, then select and implement relevant controls from the organizational, people, physical, and technological themes in Annex of ISO 27001, 2022, updating the statement of applicability accordingly. Explanation. The transition from ISO 27001, 2013 to ISO 27001, 2022 introduces new annexes and updated controls. Annex of ISO 27001, 2013 contained 114 controls organized into 14 domains. ISO 27001, 2022, however, presents a restructured set of 93 controls categorized into 4 themes: organizational, people, physical, and technological. This consolidation and recategorization aim to provide a more agile and responsive framework for managing information security in the face of evolving threats. When implementing controls to address new threats, particularly those not explicitly covered or adequately addressed by the 2013 version, an organization must perform a thorough risk assessment. This assessment identifies relevant new threats, evaluates their potential impact and likelihood, and determines the appropriate controls from the updated Annex A. The selection and implementation of these controls must be documented within the statement of applicability, so A, and integrated into the organization's information security management system, ISMS. The 2022 version emphasizes a more outcome-based approach to controls and introduces new control categories like threat intelligence and cloud security, which are crucial for addressing contemporary cyber risks. Therefore, the most effective approach involves a comprehensive review of the new control set against identified new threats, followed by the systematic integration of selected controls into the ISMS, ensuring alignment with the organization's risk appetite and business objectives. This process is iterative and requires continuous monitoring and review to maintain effectiveness. Question 2. Consider a scenario where an organization implementing ISO 27001-2013 has established an objective to reduce the average time to detect critical security breaches by 20% within the next audit cycle. During the check phase of their continual improvement process, analysis of security logs and incident response reports indicates that while the detection time for some threats has improved, the overall average has only decreased by 12%. Furthermore, the analysis highlights that the detection latency for novel zero-day exploits has remained consistently high, impacting the overall average. Which of the following actions, taken during the ACT phase, would most effectively address this specific finding and contribute to the ISM's continual improvement towards the stated objective? Option A. Implement advanced threat intelligence feeds and enhance the capabilities of intrusion detection systems to better identify emerging and zero-day threats. Option B. Increase the frequency of vulnerability scanning across all network segments to identify potential weaknesses before they can be exploited. Option C. Mandate additional security awareness training for all employees, focusing on phishing and social engineering techniques. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive review of all existing access control policies and update them to include stricter user authentication protocols. The correct answer is A. Implement advanced threat intelligence feeds and enhance the capabilities of intrusion detection systems to better identify emerging and zero-day threats. Explanation: the continual improvement process within an ISO 27001/2013 Information Security Management System, ISMS, is fundamentally driven by a Plan-Do Check Act (PDCA) cycle. The check phase is crucial for evaluating the effectiveness of the ISMS and identifying areas for enhancement. This involves monitoring and measurement of the ISM's performance against established objectives and policies. For instance, if an organization sets an objective to reduce the number of critical security incidents by 15% within a fiscal year, the check phase would involve analyzing incident logs, conducting post-incident reviews, and comparing the actual reduction achieved against the target. This analysis might reveal that, while the number of incidents decreased, the time to detect and respond to certain types of threats has increased, indicating a need for improvement in incident detection mechanisms. The results of these checks and measurements are then used to inform the ACT phase, where corrective and preventive actions are implemented to address nonconformities and opportunities for improvement. This iterative process ensures that the ISMS remains relevant, effective, and aligned with the evolving threat landscape and business objectives. The effectiveness of the ISMS is not static. It requires ongoing scrutiny and adaptation, making the check phase a cornerstone of its continual improvement. This aligns with the principles of ISO 27001, which mandates a proactive approach to managing information security risks and fostering a culture of enhancement. Question 3. An organization transitioning to ISO 27001/2013 has implemented a new access control policy. During the check phase of their ISMS PDCA cycle, they discover through log analysis and user feedback that a significant portion of privileged accounts are not being reviewed quarterly as mandated by the policy, leading to potential unauthorized access risks. This finding directly impacts the effectiveness of their information security controls. Which of the following best describes the primary purpose of this discovery within the PDCA framework for this specific scenario? Option A. To archive data on noncompliance for future reference, without immediate need for intervention, as the policy is still in its initial implementation phase. Option B. To identify deviations from the established access control policy and initiate corrective actions in the ACT phase to improve compliance and reduce risk. Option C. To gather evidence for an external audit demonstrating that all access control policies are being rigorously followed, regardless of actual effectiveness. Option D. To confirm that the implemented access control policy is inherently flawed and requires a complete reevaluation of the entire ISMS framework. The correct answer is B. To identify deviations from the established access control policy and initiate corrective actions in the ACT phase to improve compliance and reduce risk. Explanation: the Plan-Do Check Act (PDCA) cycle is fundamental to the continuous improvement of an information security management system, ISMS, as outlined in ISO 27001/2013. The check phase is crucial for evaluating the effectiveness of implemented controls and processes against defined objectives and policies. This involves monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation. For instance, if an organization sets an objective to reduce the number of successful phishing attacks by 20% within a year, the check phase would involve analyzing incident logs, user reporting data, and results from simulated phishing campaigns to determine if this objective is being met. It's about understanding what is working, what is not, and why, by comparing performance against established metrics and requirements. This phase directly informs the ACT phase, where corrective actions or improvements are planned and implemented based on the findings. Without a robust check phase, the ISMS cannot adapt to evolving threats or operational changes, potentially leading to a decline in security posture. The transition to ISO 27001/2013 emphasizes this iterative approach for maintaining and enhancing information security. Question 4. A multinational corporation, Ethelstan Dynamics, is undergoing its transition from ISO 27001-2013 to the 2022 standard. Their internal audit team has identified that their current security awareness training program, while robust, does not explicitly address the emerging threat of sophisticated phishing attacks that leverage AI-generated content and deepfake audio. According to the revised Annex of Controls in ISO 27001-2022, which of the new or updated control objectives would most directly necessitate an enhancement to Ethelstan Dynamics' existing training to counter this specific threat? Option A, A5. 1 Policies for Information Security. Option B, A8. 3 Information Security and Supplier Relationships. Option C, A8. 3 Information Security Awareness, Education and Training. Option D, A7. 1 Use of Cryptography. Correct answer is C, A8. 3 Information Security Awareness, Education and Training. Explanation: the transition from ISO 27001-2013 to ISO 27001-2022 involves significant changes, particularly in the structure and content of Annex A. The 2013 version had 14 domains and 114 controls. The 2022 version consolidates these into 4 themes: organizational, people, physical, and technological. Within these themes, there are 93 controls, including 11 new controls, 24 updated controls, and 58 controls that remain largely unchanged but are rephrased or recategorized. The core principle of risk assessment and treatment remains, but the control catalog provides a more modern and comprehensive approach. When considering the transition, organizations must map their existing controls to the new structure, identify any gaps, and implement new or updated controls as necessary based on their risk assessment. The new controls in ISO 27001-2022 are designed to address emerging threats and technologies. For instance, the introduction of controls related to threat intelligence, cloud security, data masking, data leakage prevention, monitoring activities, web filtering, and secure coding practices reflects the evolving landscape of information security. Understanding the rationale behind these changes and how they map to existing security practices is crucial for a successful transition. The updated Annex of Controls are intended to be more flexible and adaptable, allowing organizations to select and implement controls that are relevant to their specific context and risk appetite. This shift emphasizes a more outcome-based approach to security rather than a prescriptive one. Question 5. Consider a multinational corporation, Astra Tech Solutions, that has undergone a significant restructuring, divesting its entire European logistics division. This division was previously integrated into their ISO 27001-2013 Certified Information Security Management System. Following this divestment, what is the most critical action the organization must take concerning its ISMs to maintain compliance and relevance during its transition to ISO 27001-2022? Option A. Continue to maintain the existing ISM scope as defined in the 2013 certification, focusing solely on the implementation of the new ISO 27001-2022 Annex of Control themes without altering the scope documentation. Option B. Update the statement of applicability to reflect the new control themes from ISO 27001-2022, but keep the ISM scope unchanged, assuming the divested division's information assets are no longer relevant to the core business. Option C. Initiate a full recertification audit against ISO 27001-2022 for the entire organization, irrespective of the divestment, as a standard practice for any transition. Option D. Formally review and update the ISM scope to exclude the divested European logistics division and assess the impact on the remaining ISMs, including the selection and implementation of relevant ISO 27001-2022 Annex of Controls. Correct answer is D. Formally review and update the ISM scope to exclude the divested European logistics division and assess the impact on the remaining ISMs, including the selection and implementation of relevant ISO 27001-2022 Annex of Controls. Explanation: the transition from ISO 27001-2013 to ISO 27001-2022 involves a significant restructuring of Annex of Controls. The 2022 version consolidates and reorganizes controls into 4 themes: organizational, people, physical, and technological. The scope of an information security management system, ISMS, must encompass all organizational units, functions, services, and assets that are relevant to the information security objectives and policies. When transitioning, the organization must ensure that the defined scope remains appropriate and that all applicable controls from the new annex are considered in relation to this scope. If a significant business unit or service that was previously within the scope is divested, or if a new critical business unit is acquired, the scope of the ISMS must be reviewed and updated to reflect these changes. This review is not merely a documentation exercise. It requires a thorough assessment of how the ISMS, including its controls and objectives, applies to the current organizational structure and business operations. Failure to update the scope to accurately reflect the organization's current boundaries can lead to a nonconformity, as the ISMS would no longer be demonstrably covering the intended and actual operational landscape. Therefore, the divestment of a key operational division necessitates a formal review and potential revision of the ISMS scope to ensure continued compliance and effectiveness. Question 6. Consider a scenario at a global logistics firm, Swift Ship Logistics, which is undergoing its ISO 27001-2013 transition. They have identified a significant risk related to unauthorized access to their proprietary route optimization algorithms. The risk treatment plan proposes accepting this risk, citing the high cost of implementing advanced encryption and access control measures. However, the documented residual risk level, while reduced, still exceeds the firm's stated risk acceptance criteria. The decision to accept the risk was made by the IT security manager without explicit documented approval from senior management or a detailed business case demonstrating that the cost of further mitigation truly outweighs the potential impact. Which of the following actions taken by Swift Ship Logistics represents a critical deviation from the ISO 27001-2013 requirements for risk treatment plan implementation? Option A. Assigning responsibility for implementing the chosen risk treatment option to a specific individual within the organization. Option B. Identifying and selecting controls from Annex of ISO 27001-2013 to address the identified risk. Option C. Documenting the chosen risk treatment option in the risk treatment plan, even if it involves risk acceptance. Option D. Accepting a risk that remains above the organization's defined risk acceptance criteria without documented management approval and a comprehensive justification for acceptance. The correct answer is D. Accepting a risk that remains above the organization's defined risk acceptance criteria without documented management approval and a comprehensive justification for acceptance. Explanation. The transition from ISO 27001-2005 to ISO 27001-2013 introduced significant changes, particularly in how information security risks are treated. The 2013 version emphasizes a more structured and comprehensive approach to risk treatment planning, requiring the documented selection of controls from Annex and justification for any exclusions. When a risk treatment option is chosen, such as risk acceptance, it must be supported by a clear rationale, especially when the residual risk remains above the organization's risk acceptance criteria. This rationale typically involves demonstrating that the cost or effort of further treatment outweighs the potential impact of the risk, and that this decision has been formally approved by management. The ISO 27001-2013 standard mandates that the risk treatment plan document the chosen treatment options, the responsible parties, the time frame for implementation, and the residual risk level. Therefore, accepting a risk without documented management approval and a clear justification, especially when the residual risk is still significant, would be a nonconformity against the standard's requirements for risk treatment. The process requires a systematic evaluation of the chosen treatment option against the organization's risk appetite and the business objectives. Question 7. When an organization is transitioning its information security management system from ISO 27001-2005 to ISO 27001-2013, and considering the updated requirements for Annex A controls and the overall high-level structure, how is the effectiveness of the mandatory Information Security Awareness Training Program most accurately assessed to demonstrate compliance and foster a security-conscious culture? Option A. By conducting a post-training quiz with a passing score of 80% for all employees, ensuring knowledge retention. Option B, by tracking a statistically significant decrease in security incidents directly attributable to human error and an increase in the reporting of suspicious activities by staff. Option C, by reviewing the number of security policies that have been updated to reflect the new ISO 27001-2013 requirements, assuming training covers these updates. Option D, by verifying that all employees have attended at least one awareness session annually, as documented in the HR training records. The correct answer is B, by tracking a statistically significant decrease in security incidents directly attributable to human error and an increase in the reporting of suspicious activities by staff. Explanation: the transition from ISO 27001-2005 to ISO 27001-2013 mandated several changes, including the introduction of Annex A-5, which covers asset management, and a stronger emphasis on risk assessment and treatment. Specifically, the 2013 version integrates the high-level structure, HLS, common to all ISO management system standards, which requires a more systematic approach to information security. Awareness training, as per Clause 7.2, is crucial for ensuring that all personnel understand their responsibilities and the importance of information security. The effectiveness of this training is not solely measured by attendance or completion rates, but by its ability to influence behavior and reduce security incidents. A robust awareness program should be tailored to the specific roles and responsibilities within an organization and should be regularly reviewed and updated to reflect evolving threats and organizational changes. It must also address the legal and regulatory requirements relevant to the organization's operations, such as data protection laws like GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, or equivalent national legislation, which mandates certain levels of data handling awareness. The success of an awareness program is best gauged by observing a demonstrable reduction in human error-related security incidents and an increase in employees' proactive reporting of potential security issues. This signifies a genuine shift in security culture, which is the ultimate goal of effective awareness training. Question 8. Considering the foundational principles of information security as mandated by ISO 27001, which core attribute is most directly addressed by controls designed to prevent unauthorized disclosure of sensitive corporate strategies to competitors, thereby safeguarding the organization's competitive advantage? Option A, confidentiality. Option B, availability. Option C, non-repudiation. Option D, integrity. The correct answer is A, confidentiality. Explanation: the transition from ISO 27001-2013 to ISO 27001-2022 involves significant changes in the Annex A controls. Specifically, the 2022 version consolidates and restructures controls, introducing new themes and updating existing ones. The concept of information security itself, as defined by ISO 27001, is the protection of information from all threats, ensuring that business continuity is maintained, minimizing business damage, and maximizing the return on investments and business opportunities. This protection is achieved by ensuring information possesses the properties of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality means ensuring that information is accessible only to those authorized to have access. Integrity means safeguarding the accuracy and completeness of information and processing methods. Availability means ensuring that authorized users have access to information and associated assets when required. The transition requires organizations to reevaluate their existing controls against the new framework, ensuring that the core principles of information security remain robustly implemented. Understanding the fundamental definition of information security as the preservation of these three core properties is crucial for a successful transition, as it underpins the rationale for all controls implemented within the information security management system. Question 9. Consider a cybersecurity firm, Cygnus Solutions, that is migrating its information security management system from ISO 27001-2013 to the latest standard. Their risk assessment identified a significant vulnerability related to unauthorized access to sensitive client data stored on cloud infrastructure. During the risk treatment phase, what is the most direct and substantial impact stemming from the transition to the new standards control framework on how Cygnus Solutions addresses this identified risk? Option A. The organization's existing risk acceptance criteria will be invalidated, necessitating a complete redefinition of acceptable risk levels for all identified threats. Option B. The compliance audit process will shift from periodic internal reviews to continuous external monitoring, requiring a different approach to demonstrating risk treatment effectiveness. Option C. The fundamental methodology for conducting the initial risk assessment and identifying the vulnerability will undergo a complete overhaul to align with new assessment techniques introduced in the standard. Option D. The selection and implementation of specific security controls to mitigate the risk will be guided by the reorganized control themes and updated control descriptions in Annex A of the new standard. The correct answer is D. The selection and implementation of specific security controls to mitigate the risk will be guided by the reorganized control themes and updated control descriptions in Annex A of the new standard. Explanation. The transition from ISO 27001-2013 to ISO 27001-2022 involves significant changes, particularly in the Annex A controls. ISO 27001-2013 structured its controls into 4 domains: A5 Information Security Policies, A6 Organization of Information Security, A7 Human Resource Security, A8 Asset Management, A9 Access Control, A10 Cryptography, A11 Physical and Environmental Security, A12 Operations Security, A13 Communications Security, A14 System Acquisition, Development and Maintenance, A15 Supplier Relationships, A16 Information Security Incident Management, A17 Information Security Aspects of Business Continuity Management, and A18 Compliance. ISO 27001-2022 reorganizes these into 4 new themes: organizational controls, people controls, physical controls, and technological controls. This restructuring aims to simplify the control set and improve its relevance to modern information security challenges. When transitioning, an organization must perform a comprehensive gap analysis to identify which controls from the 2013 version have been mapped to the new themes in the 2022 version, and to identify any new controls introduced in the 2022 version that may be applicable. The risk assessment process itself, as outlined in Clause 6.1.2 of ISO 27001-2013, and similarly in the 2022 version, remains a fundamental requirement. However, the treatment of identified risks must now consider the updated control set. If a risk treatment option involves implementing controls, the organization must refer to the new annex of ISO 27001-2022. For instance, a risk identified in 2013 related to A9.1.2 secure logon procedures would need to be re-evaluated against the relevant controls in the 2022 version, which might be consolidated or rephrased under the technological controls theme, such as controls related to authentication and access management. The process of selecting and implementing controls for risk treatment is therefore directly impacted by the new control framework. The question asks about the primary impact on risk treatment during the transition. The most direct impact is on the selection and implementation of controls, as the entire Annex A structure has been revised. While the risk assessment methodology might be refined and the statement of applicability needs updating, the core of risk treatment is the application of controls. Therefore, the revised Annex A controls are the most significant factor influencing the risk treatment phase during the transition. Question 10. Considering the mandatory transition from ISO 27001-2013 to ISO 27001-2022, what fundamental step is most crucial for an organization that has already established a compliant information security management system, ISMS, under the 2013 version to ensure continued certification and operational effectiveness? Option A. Discontinuing all documented information related to the 2013 version and creating entirely new documentation from scratch for the 2022 standard. Option B. Submitting a formal request to the certification body to extend the validity of the ISO 27001-2013 certification indefinitely. Option C. Conducting a comprehensive gap analysis against the new Annex A controls and updating the statement of applicability accordingly. Option D. Immediately implementing all new controls listed in ISO 27001-2022, regardless of their relevance to the organization's risk profile. The correct answer is C. conducting a comprehensive gap analysis against the new Annex of Controls and updating the statement of applicability accordingly. Explanation: the transition from ISO 27001, 2013 to ISO 27001, 2022 involves several key considerations, primarily driven by the updated Annex of Controls and the revised clause structure. A critical aspect of this transition is understanding the implications for existing documented information and the overall management system. The 2022 version introduces new control categories: organizational, people, physical, technological, and consolidates or modifies many controls from the 2013 version. For an organization that has established its information security management system, ISMS, based on the 2013 standard, a thorough gap analysis is paramount. This analysis will identify which controls from the 2013 standard have been modified, removed, or added in the 2022 version. The transition plan must then address how these changes will be incorporated into the ISMS, including updating policies, procedures, and the statement of applicability. So A. The timeline for transition is typically set by the certification body and the standard itself, with a defined period after the publication of the new standard for organizations to complete their transition. Failing to transition within this period can lead to the invalidation of existing certifications. Therefore, proactive planning, resource allocation, and a structured approach to updating the ISMS are essential to ensure a smooth and compliant transition, maintaining the integrity and effectiveness of the information security program. The emphasis is on adapting the existing ISMS to the new control framework, rather than a complete overhaul, focusing on the differences and their impact. Question 11. Considering the transition of an information security management system, ISMS, from ISO 27001-2013, what is the fundamental requirement regarding the organization of information security responsibilities, as outlined in the standards framework for maintaining operational effectiveness and accountability? Option A. All employees are to be made aware of general information security principles, with specific roles and responsibilities only being assigned to the IT department. Option B. Top management must ensure that information security responsibilities and authorities are defined, documented, communicated, and assigned to relevant personnel throughout the organization. Option C. A dedicated information security department must be established with a minimum of 5 full-time employees to oversee all security-related activities. Option D. The transition process mandates the creation of a new committee responsible for information security governance, with all previous roles being superseded. The correct answer is B. Top management must ensure that information security responsibilities and authorities are defined, documented, communicated, and assigned to relevant personnel throughout the organization. Explanation: the transition from ISO 27001-2013 to a newer version, such as ISO 27001-2022, requires careful consideration of how the organizational structure and responsibilities for information security are maintained and adapted. Clause 5.3 of ISO 27001-2013, Operational Planning and Control, and Annex A. 7.1.1, Information Security Roles and Responsibilities, are key areas that define how information security is organized. The standard mandates that top management ensure information security responsibilities and authorities are defined, documented, and communicated. This involves assigning specific roles, such as the Information Security Manager, and ensuring that these roles have the necessary authority to execute their duties effectively. The transition process itself necessitates a review of these assigned roles to ensure they align with any updated requirements or changes in the management system. For instance, if the organization introduces new technologies or processes, the responsibilities for securing these might need to be reallocated or augmented. The primary objective is to maintain clarity and accountability for information security across the organization, ensuring that no critical functions are overlooked during the transition. This involves a systematic review of existing roles, the identification of any gaps, and the implementation of necessary adjustments to the organizational structure and responsibilities to support the ongoing effectiveness of the information security management system. The focus is on the practical implementation of assigning and communicating these responsibilities to ensure the ISMS is operational and compliant with the standard's requirements throughout the transition period. Question 12. When transitioning an information security management system, ISMS, from ISO 27001-2005 to ISO 27001-2013, which of the following best describes the primary impact on the organization's change management practices for information security controls? Option A. Complete overhaul of all existing IT infrastructure to ensure compliance with the new standard security baseline, irrespective of prior security investments. Option B. The introduction of automated security patching for all critical systems, eliminating the need for manual change approval processes. Option C. A shift in responsibility for security change management from the IT department to the legal and compliance teams exclusively. Option D. A more rigorous and documented process for assessing the security implications of all proposed changes to information, processing facilities, and systems, including a review of their impact on the overall ISM's effectiveness. The correct answer is D. A more rigorous and documented process for assessing the security implications of all proposed changes to information, processing facilities, and systems, including a review of their impact on the overall ISM's effectiveness. Explanation. The transition from ISO 27001-2005 to ISO 27001-2013 introduced several key changes impacting how organizations manage changes to their information security controls and the overall information security management system, ISMS. A critical aspect of this transition involved the refinement of the change management process to ensure that any modifications, whether to policies, procedures, technology, or personnel roles affecting information security, were systematically evaluated for their impact on the ISMS and its effectiveness. ISO 27001-2013, particularly in Annex A controls like A12.1.2 change management, emphasizes a structured approach. This involves identifying the need for change, assessing its security implications, obtaining authorization, implementing the change, and reviewing its effectiveness post-implementation. The transition required organizations to ensure their existing change management processes, if any, were aligned with these updated requirements, or to establish new processes if none existed. This proactive management of changes is crucial to prevent the introduction of new vulnerabilities or the degradation of existing security measures. For instance, a change in network infrastructure, such as upgrading firewalls or introducing new server configurations, must be assessed for its potential to bypass existing security controls or introduce misconfigurations that could be exploited. Similarly, changes to access control policies or the introduction of new software applications necessitate a thorough security review. The transition mandated a more rigorous and documented approach to change management, ensuring that the integrity, confidentiality, and availability of information assets were maintained throughout the modification lifecycle. This aligns with the broader goal of maintaining the ISM's fitness for purpose and its ability to protect information assets effectively against evolving threats. The focus is on the systematic control of changes to information, processing facilities and systems. Question 13. Considering the transition from ISO 27001-2013 to ISO 27001-2022, which pair of Annex A controls from the 2022 version most effectively consolidates and addresses the core requirements previously covered by A9.1.1 physical entry controls and A9.1.2 securing offices, rooms, and facilities of the 2013 standard, particularly concerning the prevention of unauthorized physical access and protection against environmental hazards. Option A, A7.1 physical entry and A7.3 physical security monitoring. Option B, A7.4 secure disposal or reuse of equipment and A7.5 securing of equipment. Option C, A7.3 physical security monitoring and A7.6 working in secure areas. Option D, A7.1 physical entry and A7.2 securing spaces. Correct answer is D, A7.1 physical entry and A7.2 securing spaces. Explanation. The transition from ISO 27001-2013 to ISO 27001-2022 involves updates to the controls within Annex A. Specifically, Annex A9, which deals with physical and environmental security, has undergone revisions. In the 2022 version, the controls are reorganized and some are merged or updated to reflect current threats and best practices. Control A9.1 1. Physical entry controls from ISO 27001-2013 is now addressed through a combination of controls in the 2022 version, notably A7. 1. Physical entry and A7. 3. Physical security monitoring. A7. 1 focuses on preventing unauthorized physical access, use, and damage to organizational facilities, and A7. 3 pertains to monitoring physical security and reporting anomalies. The concept of securing areas against environmental threats, previously covered under A9. 1. 2. Securing offices, rooms, and facilities, is now integrated into A7. 2. Securing spaces, which encompasses protection against external and environmental threats, including fire, flood, and natural disasters, as well as power and cooling failures. Therefore, when considering the transition and the focus on physical entry controls and environmental security, the updated controls in the 2022 standard that best encompass the intent of A9. 1 and A9. 2 are A7. 1 and A7. 2. The question asks for the controls that replace or consolidate the intent of A9. 1 and A9. 2. Control A7. 1 Physical entry directly addresses the core of A9. 1 and Control A7. 2 Securing spaces consolidates the aspects of A9. 2 Concerning protection from environmental threats and securing facilities. Question 14. An organization is planning to transition its existing information security management system, ISMS, from an older framework to conform with ISO 27001-2013. Simultaneously, it aims to integrate this ISMS with its developing business continuity management system, BCMS, based on ISO 22301-2019. Considering the structural alignment introduced by Annex SL and the operational requirements of both standards, what is the most efficient and effective strategy for achieving this dual objective, ensuring minimal overlap and maximum synergy between the two management systems? Option A. Develop entirely separate operational plans and risk treatment methodologies for the ISMS and BCMS, focusing on distinct control sets and response mechanisms to ensure specialized security and continuity measures are maintained independently. Option B. Implement a single, overarching management system that treats information security and business continuity as identical disciplines, merging all clauses and requirements into a consolidated framework without specific consideration for the distinct objectives of each standard. Option C. Prioritize the ISMS transition to ISO 27001-2013 first, then address BCMS integration with ISO 22301-2019 as a secondary project, allowing for a phased approach that minimizes immediate complexity. Option D. Align the operational planning and control activities, risk assessment, and risk treatment processes within the ISMS, ISO 27001-2013, Clause 8, directly with the business impact analysis, risk assessment, and continuity strategy development within the BCMS, ISO 22301-2019, Clause 8, to create unified operational procedures and risk treatment plans. The correct answer is D. Align the operational planning and control activities, risk assessment, and risk treatment processes within the ISMS, ISO 27001-2013, Clause 8, directly with the business impact analysis, risk assessment, and continuity strategy development within the BCMS, ISO 22301-2019, Clause 8, to create unified operational procedures and risk treatment plans. Explanation. The transition from ISO 27001-2005 to ISO 27001-2013 involved significant structural and content changes, including the adoption of the high-level structure, HLS, common to other ISO management system standards like ISO 9001-2015 and ISO 22301-2019. This HLS, defined in Annex SL of the ISO directives, facilitates the integration of multiple management systems. When considering the integration of an information security management system, ISMS, based on ISO 27001-2013, with a business continuity management system, BCMS, based on ISO 22301-2019, the most effective approach leverages the common clauses and principles. Clause 8 of ISO 27001-2013, Operation, which includes subclauses like 8. 1. Operational planning and control, and 8. 2. Information security risk assessment, and 8. 3. Information security risk treatment directly aligns with and supports the objectives of ISO 22301 Clause 8. Operation, which encompasses business impact analysis, risk assessment, and the development of continuity strategies and solutions. By mapping the ISM's operational controls and risk treatment plans to the BCMS requirements for maintaining critical functions during disruption, organizations can achieve synergy. This ensures that security measures are considered within the context of business continuity and vice versa, avoiding duplication of effort and creating a more robust, unified management system. For instance, incident response procedures within the ISMs can be directly linked to the BCMS incident response and activation plans, ensuring a seamless transition between security incident management and business continuity activation. The common clauses related to leadership, planning, support, and performance evaluation also benefit from this integrated approach, allowing for a single set of policies, objectives, and performance monitoring mechanisms where appropriate, thereby simplifying governance and enhancing overall effectiveness. Question 15. When transitioning an information security management system, ISMs, from ISO 27001-2013 to ISO 27001-2022, a critical step involves understanding the evolution of controls. Consider the new control objectives introduced in Annex of ISO 27001-2022, such as threat intelligence and cloud security monitoring. Which of the following best describes the strategic approach an organization should adopt to integrate these new and evolving control requirements into their existing ISMs, ensuring alignment with the revised standards thematic structure and the overarching goal of continuous improvement? Option A. Conduct a gap analysis of existing 2013 controls against the 4 new themes: organizational, people, physical, technological of ISO 27001, 2022 Annex A, identifying new controls not covered by the 2013 baseline and developing specific implementation plans for these new controls, potentially requiring updates to policies, procedures, and risk treatment strategies. Option B. Focus solely on updating the statement of applicability to reflect the new control numbers from ISO 27001-2022, assuming that the existing control implementations from ISO 27001-2013 are sufficient without further assessment or modification. Option C. Allocate resources exclusively to the technological controls theme in ISO 27001-2022 Annex A, as this is perceived as the most critical area for modern information security, and defer the review of organizational and people-related controls to a later, unspecified date. Option D. Prioritize the implementation of all new controls listed in ISO 27001-2022 Annex by creating entirely new security policies and procedures, disregarding any existing documentation from the 2013 version to ensure a clean slate. The correct answer is A. Conduct a gap analysis of existing 2013 controls against the 4 new themes: organizational, people, physical, technological of ISO 27001, 2022 Annex A, identifying new controls not covered by the 2013 baseline and developing specific implementation plans for these new controls, potentially requiring updates to policies, procedures, and risk treatment strategies. Explanation: the transition from ISO 27001-2013 to ISO 27001-2022 involves a significant restructuring and update of the standards clauses and Annex A controls. A key aspect of this transition is understanding how the new control themes and categories in Annex of ISO 27001-2022 map to the older control sets from ISO 27001-2013. Specifically, the 2022 version consolidates and reorients controls into 4 themes: organizational, people, physical, and technological. And considering the transition, organizations must identify which of the 2013 controls are addressed by the new 2022 controls, and importantly, which new controls are introduced that might not have a direct predecessor. The objective is to ensure comprehensive coverage of information security risks under the updated framework. The 2022 version introduces new controls such as threat intelligence, cloud security monitoring, configuration management, and data masking, which may require new or revised implementation strategies. Understanding these mappings and new requirements is crucial for a successful transition, ensuring the ISMS remains effective and compliant with the latest security best practices and evolving threat landscapes. This involves a thorough review of the existing ISMS against the new standards requirements and control objectives. Question 16. A multinational corporation, Veridian Dynamics, is undergoing its transition audit for ISO 27001-2013. During the audit, the lead assessor is scrutinizing the organization's approach to monitoring, measuring, analyzing, and evaluating its Information Security Management System, ISMS. Veridian Dynamics has implemented numerous security controls and regularly collects logs from various systems, including intrusion detection systems, access control logs, and incident management records. They have also defined several key performance indicators, KPI, for their security operations. However, the assessor points out that while data is being collected and KPIs are tracked, there isn't a clearly documented methodology for how the analysis of this collected data is systematically performed to assess the effectiveness of the ISMS against its stated objectives, nor is there a clear process for how these analytical outcomes inform strategic ISMS improvements. Considering the requirements of ISO 27001-2013, which of the following best describes the necessary improvement for Veridian Dynamics to demonstrate compliance with Clause 9? 1. Option A. Increase the frequency of log collection from all critical information assets and expand the number of KPIs to include more granular metrics related to individual control performance. Option B. Develop and document a defined process for analyzing collected ISMS data against established evaluation criteria, ensuring that the insights derived from this analysis are systematically used to assess the performance and effectiveness of the ISMS and to drive continual improvement initiatives. Option C. Conduct an annual independent review of all collected security logs and KPI reports to validate the accuracy of the data and identify any anomalies. Option D. Implement a new security information and event management (SIEM) solution that can automate the correlation of security events and provide real-time dashboards for all ISMS metrics. The correct answer is B. Develop and document a defined process for analyzing collected ISMS data against established evaluation criteria, ensuring that the insights derived from this analysis are systematically used to assess the performance and effectiveness of the ISMS and to drive continual improvement initiatives. Explanation: the transition from ISO 27001-2005 to ISO 27001-2013 involves significant changes, particularly in how an organization should monitor, measure, analyze, and evaluate its Information Security Management System, ISMS. Clause 9. 1 of ISO 27001-2013, Monitoring, Measurement, Analysis, and Evaluation, mandates that organizations determine what needs to be monitored and measured, the methods for monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation, when monitoring and measurement should be performed, and when the results should be analyzed and evaluated. The key shift from the 2005 version was a more explicit requirement for defining how these activities would be conducted, and ensuring the results were analyzed to assess the performance and effectiveness of the ISMS. This involves establishing clear criteria for evaluation, linking these metrics to the organization's information security objectives, and ensuring that the analysis provides actionable insights for continual improvement. The standard emphasizes that the evaluation of the results is crucial to understand the ISMS performance and identify areas for enhancement. This is distinct from simply collecting data. It's about interpreting that data in the context of the ISMS goals and operational environment. The focus is on demonstrating the effectiveness of controls and the overall ISMS, not just compliance with a list of controls. Therefore, the most appropriate approach to demonstrating effective monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation under ISO 27001-2013 involves establishing a systematic process for data collection, defining clear evaluation criteria linked to ISMS objectives, and ensuring the analysis of these results drives improvement initiatives. Question 17. A financial services firm transitioning to ISO 27001-2013 has identified that Annex A, 8.1.3, Clear Desk and Clear Screen, is considered not applicable to its entirely cloud-based operational model where all sensitive data resides within secure, managed cloud environments, and employees access systems remotely via encrypted connections without local storage of critical information. What is the most appropriate justification for deeming this control not applicable within the firm's statement of applicability? Option A. The control is inherently redundant given the implementation of Annex A, 10.1.1, Policy on the Use of Cryptographic Controls, which adequately secures data transmission. Option B. The firm's reliance on a fully cloud-based infrastructure eliminates the need for physical desk and screen security as all data is processed and stored in a secure, controlled third-party environment. Option C. The absence of physical office locations for employees negates any requirement for managing physical documents or screens within the organization's direct control. Option D. The firm's extensive use of multi-factor authentication for all system access inherently mitigates any risks associated with unauthorized physical access to devices. The correct answer is B. The firm's reliance on a fully cloud-based infrastructure eliminates the need for physical desk and screen security as all data is processed and stored in a secure, controlled third-party environment. Explanation. The Statement of Applicability, SOA, is a crucial document in ISO 27001:2013, detailing which controls from Annex are relevant to the organization's information security management system, ISMS, and why. It also specifies whether these selected controls are implemented. The transition from a previous standard or a less formal approach to ISO 27001:2013 requires a thorough review of existing security measures against the requirements of Annex A. When an organization identifies a control in Annex A as not applicable, it must provide a clear justification for its exclusion. This justification should be based on the specific context, risks, and business objectives of the organization. For instance, if a control pertains to physical security of a data center that the organization does not operate but outsources to a certified provider, the justification would likely relate to the outsourcing arrangement and the provider's own compliance. The SOA is a living document, meaning it must be reviewed and updated periodically, or when significant changes occur within the ISMS or the organization's operational environment. The process of developing the SOA involves identifying applicable controls, justifying exclusions, and documenting the implementation status of each selected control. This ensures that the ISMS is tailored to the organization's unique risk profile and operational needs, thereby demonstrating due diligence and compliance with the standard. The inclusion of a control is typically determined by its relevance to mitigating identified risks. If a control is deemed necessary to address a specific risk, it must be included and implemented. Conversely, if a risk is not present or is addressed through other means, a control might be deemed not applicable. But this requires robust evidence and a clear rationale. Question 18. When transitioning an information security management system, ISMS, from an earlier standard to ISO 27001:2013, and tasked with establishing measurable information security objectives for the marketing department, which planning element is most critical for ensuring these objectives are effectively integrated and achievable within the new framework, considering potential impacts on data privacy regulations like GDPR. Option A. Defining specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, SMART, objectives that directly support the overall organizational security strategy and are linked to identified risks and opportunities, with clear action plans detailing responsibilities and timelines. Option B. Prioritizing the immediate implementation of Annex A controls from ISO 27001:2013, assuming that control implementation will automatically lead to the achievement of security objectives. Option C. Conducting a comprehensive review of all previous ISO 27001:2005 controls to identify any that are no longer relevant or require modification under the 2013 version, without focusing on new objective setting. Option D. Focusing solely on the technical aspects of information security, such as network segmentation and encryption, to meet compliance requirements, and deferring the definition of specific departmental objectives until after the technical migration is complete. The correct answer is A. Defining specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, SMART, objectives that directly support the overall organizational security strategy and are linked to identified risks and opportunities, with clear action plans detailing responsibilities and timelines. Explanation: the transition from ISO 27001, 2005 to ISO 27001, 2013 involved significant structural and content changes, including the adoption of the High-Level Structure, HLS, common to all new ISO management system standards. Planning to achieve information security objectives under ISO 27001-2013 requires a systematic approach that considers the organization's context, identified risks, and the resources needed to implement controls and monitor performance. Specifically, Clause 6.2, Information security objectives and planning to achieve them, mandates that the organization establish information security objectives at relevant function, levels, and processes. These objectives must be measurable, monitored, communicated, and updated as appropriate. The planning process involves determining what needs to be done, what resources are required, who is responsible when it will be completed, and how the results will be evaluated. This aligns with the overall intent of the standard, to ensure that information security objectives are integrated into the organization's strategic planning and are supported by appropriate actions and resource allocation. Considering the organization's internal and external issues, the needs and expectations of interested parties, and the risk assessment results are foundational to defining meaningful and achievable objectives. Furthermore, the Plan-Do-Check Act (PDCA) cycle is inherent in the standard structure, emphasizing continuous improvement. Therefore, the planning phase must proactively identify the necessary actions, responsibilities, and timelines to realize the defined information security objectives, ensuring alignment with the overall ISM strategy and regulatory compliance, such as aspects of GDPR or HIPAA, if applicable to the organization's data processing activities. Question 19. Consider a scenario where an organization is transitioning its information security management system, ISMS, to align with ISO 27001-2013. They have identified a comprehensive list of information assets, including proprietary source code, customer transaction logs, public relations materials, and employee contact lists. To establish a robust asset management framework, the organization needs to implement a classification scheme. Which of the following approaches most effectively supports the accurate classification of these diverse assets in accordance with ISO 27001-2013 principles, considering potential regulatory compliance requirements like GDPR for customer data? Option A. Classifying assets solely based on their monetary value to the organization, as determined by acquisition cost and potential loss of revenue if compromised. Option B. Classifying assets primarily by their physical location, grouping all assets stored on a particular server or in a specific office as belonging to the same security classification. Option C. Classifying assets based on a tiered system that considers their confidentiality, integrity, and availability requirements, cross-referenced with legal and regulatory obligations pertinent to the data they contain. Option D. Classifying assets based on the department that owns them, assigning a uniform classification to all assets managed by a single department, regardless of their inherent sensitivity. The correct answer is C. Classifying assets based on a tiered system that considers their confidentiality, integrity, and availability requirements, cross-referenced with legal and regulatory obligations pertinent to the data they contain. Explanation: the core of asset management within an ISO 27001-2013 information security management system, ISMS, lies in accurately identifying, documenting, and classifying all information assets. This process is foundational for applying appropriate security controls and ensuring that the value and criticality of an asset are understood. Asset classification is a crucial step that informs the level of protection an asset requires, based on factors such as its confidentiality, integrity, and availability requirements. For instance, a customer database containing personally identifiable information, PI, would likely be classified at a higher level than a publicly available marketing brochure, necessitating more stringent access controls and encryption. The transition from a previous standard or an ad hoc approach to ISO 27001-2013 requires a systematic review of existing assets and the establishment of a consistent classification scheme that aligns with the organization's risk appetite and legal obligations, such as GDPR or HIPAA, which mandate specific data protection measures. The classification scheme should be documented and communicated to relevant personnel to ensure consistent application. This systematic approach ensures that resources are allocated effectively to protect the most critical assets, thereby supporting the overall information security objectives of the organization. The process involves defining clear criteria for each classification level and assigning a responsible owner for each asset. Without a robust asset inventory and classification, the effectiveness of other ISMS controls, such as access management or incident response, is significantly diminished. Question 20. Consider a global financial services firm, Global FinSec, that is transitioning its information security management system, ISMS, from ISO 27001-2005 to ISO 27001-2013. The firm operates in multiple jurisdictions, including the European Union with GDPR compliance and the United States with various state-specific data privacy laws. To effectively integrate the ISMS requirements into its existing business processes, as mandated by the 2013 standards' emphasis on organizational context and strategic alignment, which of the following approaches would be most instrumental in ensuring the ISMS is embedded rather than an isolated function? Option A. Conducting a comprehensive risk assessment solely focused on IT infrastructure vulnerabilities, and then retrofitting security controls into existing business processes as a secondary consideration. Option B. Proactively mapping ISMS objectives and control requirements to the firm's strategic business goals and existing operational workflows, ensuring information security is considered in all new process development and modification initiatives. Option C. Establishing a dedicated information security department with absolute autonomy to dictate security policies across all business units, independent of departmental operational mandates. Option D. Prioritizing the implementation of Annex A controls as a standalone project, with minimal direct involvement from business unit leaders in the integration process. The correct answer is B. Proactively mapping ISMS objectives and control requirements to the firm's strategic business goals and existing operational workflows, ensuring information security is considered in all new process development and modification initiatives. Explanation. The transition from ISO 27001-2005 to ISO 27001-2013 involved significant changes, particularly in how the Information Security Management System, ISMS, is integrated into an organization's overall business processes. Clause 4. 2. 1 of ISO 27001-2013, which deals with the organization's context, mandates that the organization consider external and internal issues relevant to its purpose and strategic direction that affect its ability to achieve the intended outcome of the ISMS. This directly influences how the ISMS requirements are woven into existing operational workflows. Specifically, understanding the organization's context helps in identifying applicable legal and regulatory requirements, like GDPR or HIPAA, depending on the jurisdiction and data processed, and stakeholder expectations, which are crucial for defining the scope and objectives of the ISMS. The 2013 version places a greater emphasis on leadership commitment and the integration of the ISMS into the organization's strategic planning and business operations, moving away from a purely IT-centric view. This integration ensures that information security is not an add-on but a fundamental aspect of how the business operates, managed at a strategic level and embedded within day-to-day activities. The management review process, Clause 9.3, also plays a vital role in ensuring this integration remains effective by assessing the ISMS performance and suitability in light of changes to the organization's context and objectives. Therefore, the most effective way to ensure seamless integration is to align ISMS objectives and controls with the organization's overall strategic goals and operational procedures, making information security a core business consideration. Question 21. Consider an organization transitioning its information security management system from ISO 27001-2005 to ISO 27001-2013. The organization has identified a significant opportunity to leverage cloud-based analytics for predictive threat intelligence, which could enhance its incident response capabilities. According to the requirements of ISO 27001-2013, What is the primary imperative for addressing this identified opportunity within the ISMS framework? Option A. Document the opportunity in a separate risk register, separate from the main ISMS documentation. Option B. Prioritize the opportunity based solely on its potential cost savings for the organization. Option C. Delegate the responsibility for capitalizing on the opportunity to an external consultant without further internal oversight. Option D. Integrate the opportunity into the ISMS processes and evaluate the effectiveness of the actions taken to realize it. The correct answer is D. Integrate the opportunity into the ISMS processes and evaluate the effectiveness of the actions taken to realize it. Explanation. The transition from ISO 27001-2005 to ISO 27001-2013 involved significant changes, particularly in how risks and opportunities are addressed. The 2013 version places a stronger emphasis on a proactive, integrated approach to risk management throughout the entire Information Security Management System, ISMS. Clause 6. 1. Actions to address risks and opportunities is central to this. It mandates that the organization shall plan actions to address these risks and opportunities, and integrate and implement these actions into the ISMS processes, and evaluate the effectiveness of these actions. This clause requires a systematic process for identifying, analyzing, evaluating, and treating information security risks. The opportunities identified should also be leveraged to enhance the ISMS. The organization must determine what actions are necessary to ensure the ISMS can achieve its intended outcomes, prevent or reduce undesired effects, and achieve continual improvement. These actions are to be integrated into the ISMS, and their effectiveness must be evaluated. This implies a continuous cycle of planning, doing, checking, and acting, where risk and opportunity management is not a standalone activity but embedded within the ISMS. The organization needs to consider its context, interested parties, and the scope of the ISMS when planning these actions. The management of risks and opportunities is a fundamental requirement for establishing, implementing, maintaining, and continually improving the ISMS. Question 22. Considering the transition to ISO 27001-2013, which of the following actions would be most critical for an organization to undertake regarding its Information Security Management System, ISMS, scope to ensure continued effectiveness and compliance with evolving regulatory landscapes, such as the California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA? Option A. Primarily focus on updating the statement of applicability, so A, based on the new Annex of Controls, considering the ISMS scope review as a secondary, less urgent task. Option B. Revert the ISMS scope to its original definition from the ISO 27001-2005 implementation, as the 2013 standard primarily focuses on Annex of Control updates. Option C. Limit the ISMS scope to only those areas explicitly mentioned in the ISO 27001-2013 standards example clauses, disregarding specific organizational nuances. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive reassessment of the ISMS scope to encompass all current business processes, information assets, and locations, ensuring alignment with new organizational structures and updated legal obligations like the CCPA. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive reassessment of the ISMS scope to encompass all current business processes, information assets, and locations, ensuring alignment with new organizational structures and updated legal obligations like the CCPA. Explanation. The transition from ISO 27001-2005 to ISO 27001-2013 introduced significant changes, including a restructuring of Annex of Controls and a revised emphasis on the Information Security Management System, ISMS scope. The scope of an ISMS, as defined in Clause 4.3 of ISO 27001-2013, must be documented and maintained. This scope defines the boundaries and applicability of the ISMS within an organization. When transitioning, it is crucial to reevaluate the scope to ensure it accurately reflects the current business activities, information assets, and organizational structure, especially considering any changes that may have occurred since the initial scope definition under the 2005 standard. The standard mandates that the scope should be reviewed and updated as necessary. Factors influencing this review include changes in business objectives, the introduction of new services or technologies, modifications to organizational structure, evolving legal and regulatory requirements, such as GDPR or CCPA, which may impact data processing activities within the scope, and the identification of new information assets or risks. Proactive approach to reviewing and updating the scope ensures that the ISMS remains relevant and effective in protecting the organization's information assets against identified threats. Failure to adequately review and update the scope can lead to an ISMS that does not cover critical information assets or processes, thereby undermining its overall effectiveness and compliance. The transition process itself is an opportune moment to conduct this thorough review, aligning the ISMS with the organization's current operational landscape and strategic direction. Question 23. Following a comprehensive internal audit of its ISO 27001-2013 Certified Information Security Management System, a technology firm, Innovate Solutions, discovered several instances where the documented procedures for incident response were not consistently followed across different departments. Additionally, recent cyber threat intelligence reports highlight an increase in sophisticated phishing attacks targeting executive personnel. Considering the organization's commitment to continual improvement, as mandated by ISO 27001-2013, which of the following actions would most effectively address both the audit findings and the emerging threat landscape to enhance the ISMS? Option A. Immediately revise the incident response plan to include automated detection mechanisms and deploy a new endpoint detection and response solution to mitigate future phishing attempts. Option B. Conduct targeted refresher training on incident response procedures for all personnel, focusing on the identified gaps, and update the phishing awareness program with current threat examples and simulation exercises. Option C. Strengthen the access control policies to restrict access to sensitive information and conduct a full external penetration test to validate the effectiveness of current security controls. Option D. Initiate a review of the entire ISMS documentation to identify all procedural inconsistencies and implement a new risk assessment framework to evaluate all potential threats. Correct answer is B. Conduct targeted refresher training on incident response procedures for all personnel, focusing on the identified gaps, and update the phishing awareness program with current threat examples and simulation exercises. Explanation: the continual improvement process within an ISO 27001-2013 Information Security Management System, ISMS, is fundamental to maintaining and enhancing the effectiveness of the system. This iterative cycle, often represented by the Plan Do Check Act (PDCA) model, requires organizations to systematically review their ISMS performance. Key inputs for this review include the results of internal audits, management reviews, performance monitoring, and corrective actions. When considering the transition from ISO 27001-2013 to a newer standard, or simply maintaining compliance, the organization must identify opportunities for improvement based on these inputs. This involves assessing the effectiveness of existing controls, identifying new or emerging threats, and evaluating changes in the business environment or regulatory landscape. For instance, if an internal audit reveals a recurring nonconformity in the access control process, or if a new data privacy regulation like the GDPR mandates stricter consent mechanisms, these would trigger actions to revise policies, update procedures, or implement new technical controls. The goal is to proactively address weaknesses, capitalize on strengths, and adapt the ISMS to evolving risks and requirements, ensuring its continued relevance and efficacy. The process is not merely about fixing problems, but about systematically seeking ways to elevate the security posture. Question 24. During the transition to ISO 27001-2013, an organization identified a significant threat vector impacting its customer data. The internal audit team is reviewing the proposed mitigation strategies. Which of the following best describes the process of selecting and implementing controls as mandated by the 2013 standard to address this identified threat? Option A. Evaluating the feasibility and effectiveness of various risk treatment options to modify the identified risk to an acceptable level. Option B. Solely selecting controls from Annex that directly correspond to the identified threat's technical vulnerabilities. Option C. Implementing all available security controls to ensure complete elimination of the identified threat, regardless of cost. Option D. Documenting the threat in the risk register and awaiting further guidance from external regulatory bodies for remediation. The correct answer is A. Evaluating the feasibility and effectiveness of various risk treatment options to modify the identified risk to an acceptable level. Explanation. The transition from ISO 27001, 2005 to ISO 27001, 2013 introduced significant changes, particularly in the structure and terminology. A core concept that underwent refinement was the management of risks. 2013 version emphasizes a more integrated approach to risk management throughout the organization, moving beyond just information security risks. The concept of risk treatment in ISO 27001, 2013 encompasses the selection and implementation of controls to modify risk. This involves identifying potential risk treatments, evaluating their effectiveness, and then choosing the most appropriate option. The standard also clarifies the relationship between risk assessment and risk treatment, ensuring that treatment plans are directly informed by the identified risks and their associated likelihood and impact. The selection of controls from Annex A is a crucial part of risk treatment, but it is not the entirety of it. The process involves more than just selecting controls. It's about a strategic approach to mitigating identified risks to an acceptable level. The term risk treatment options refers to the various strategies that can be employed, such as risk avoidance, risk reduction, risk sharing, or risk acceptance. The 2013 version also places a greater emphasis on the organization's context and the need to understand interested parties' requirements, which directly influences the risk appetite and the acceptable levels of residual risk. Question 25. Following a comprehensive review of its information security management system in preparation for the transition to ISO 27001, 2013, an organization identified a significant risk associated with the potential compromise of sensitive customer data stored on legacy systems. The risk assessment determined that the likelihood of a breach is moderate and the potential impact is high, resulting in an unacceptable risk level. The organization's risk management policy mandates that all unacceptable risks must be treated. Considering the principles of risk treatment as outlined in ISO 27001, 2013, which of the following approaches would be the most appropriate primary course of action to address this specific risk scenario, assuming no immediate availability of resources for complete system replacement? Option A. Share the risk by purchasing comprehensive cyber insurance that covers all potential losses associated with a data breach of the legacy systems. Option B. Immediately decommission the legacy systems and migrate all sensitive customer data to a cloud-based solution without a detailed impact analysis of the migration process. Option C. Accept the risk due to the high cost and complexity of upgrading the legacy systems and allocate budget for potential incident response. Option D. Implement enhanced access controls and encryption for the legacy system, coupled with a regular vulnerability scanning program and targeted security awareness training for personnel handling the data. The correct answer is D. Implement enhanced access controls and encryption for the legacy systems, coupled with a regular vulnerability scanning program and targeted security awareness training for personnel handling the data. Explanation. The transition from ISO 27001, 2005 to ISO 27001, 2013 involved significant changes, particularly in the risk assessment and treatment clauses. The 2013 version places a greater emphasis on the integration of the Information Security Management System, ISMS, with business processes and the broader organizational context. Specifically, Annex A controls were reorganized, and some new controls were introduced, reflecting evolving threats and technologies. The standard also clarified the requirements for risk assessment methodology, requiring it to be documented and applied consistently. When considering the risk treatment options, the 2013 standard, much like the 2005 version, outlines several acceptable approaches. These include applying controls to modify risk, accepting risk when it is within acceptable levels, avoiding risk by ceasing the activity causing the risk, or sharing risk with another party, such as through insurance or outsourcing. The core principle remains that the chosen treatment options must be appropriate for the identified risks and the organization's risk acceptance criteria. The selection of risk treatment options is directly informed by the results of the risk assessment and the organization's risk management policy. The decision-making process for risk treatment should consider the feasibility, cost-effectiveness, and potential impact of each treatment option on the organization's objectives and the effectiveness of the ISMs. The 2013 revision also stressed the importance of demonstrating the effectiveness of implemented controls through monitoring and review, which in turn feeds back into the risk assessment process. Question 26. When transitioning an information security management system from ISO 27001-2005 to the ISO 27001-2013 standard, an organization is reviewing its human resource security controls. Which of the following sets of Annex A controls from the 2013 version most directly reflects the consolidation and refinement of personnel security responsibilities previously addressed across multiple clauses in the 2005 standard? Option A, A6, 1. 1. Information security policy, A8, 1. 1. Inventory of assets, A9, 1. 1. Access control policy, and A10, 1. 1. Policy on the use of cryptographic controls. Option B, A7, 1. 1. Screening, A7, 2. 2. Information security awareness, education and training, A7, 3. 1. Disciplinary process, and A7, 4. 1. Confidentiality or non-disclosure agreements. Option C, A5, 1. 1. Policies for information security, A12, 1. 1. Documented operational procedures, A14, 1. 1. Information security policy for e-commerce, and A15, 1. 1. Information security policy for supplier relationships. Option D, A11, 1. 1. Physical security perimeter, A13, 1. 1. Network security management, A16, 1. 1. Management of information security incidents and improvements, and A18, 1. 1. Identification of applicable legislation. The correct answer is B, A7, 1. 1. Screening, A7, 2. 2. Information security awareness, education and training, A7, 3. 1. Disciplinary process, and A7, 4. 1. Confidentiality or non-disclosure agreements. Explanation. The transition from ISO 27001-2005 to ISO 27001-2013 introduced significant changes, particularly in how human resource security is managed. The 2013 version consolidated and clarified requirements. Specifically, the 2005 version had separate clauses for before employment, during employment, and termination or change of employment. The 2013 version under Annex A, 7 Human Resources Security integrates these into a more holistic approach. Clause A, 7, 1. 1. Screening requires that background checks are performed for all candidates for employment in sensitive positions, commensurate with the risks identified in the risk assessment. Clause A, 7, 2. 2. Information security awareness, education and training mandates that all personnel receive appropriate awareness training. Clause A, 7, 3. 1. Disciplinary process requires that employees are made aware of their responsibilities and the consequences of breaches. Clause A, 7, 4. 1. Confidentiality or non-disclosure agreement mandates that employees sign such agreements. The key shift is towards a risk-based approach and integrating these HR aspects into the overall ISMs, rather than treating them as isolated procedural steps. For transition, understanding these specific clause changes and their implications for existing HR processes is crucial. The question tests the understanding of the specific clauses that were either modified or consolidated in the 2013 revision concerning personnel security responsibilities. Question 27. When an organization undertakes the transition to an ISO 27001-2013 certified information security management system and is in the process of defining the organizational structure for information security, which of the following represents the most fundamental and effective approach to establishing clear accountability and operational oversight for the ISMs? Option A. Delegating all information security responsibilities to the general IT department without specific security designation. Option B. Appointing a dedicated information security officer or equivalent role with clearly defined responsibilities for the ISMs. Option C. Relying solely on the incident response team to manage all aspects of information security governance and policy. Option D. Establishing information security responsibilities as an informal duty shared among all employees without a central point of coordination. The correct answer is B. Appointing a dedicated information security officer or equivalent role with clearly defined responsibilities for the ISMs. Explanation. The question probes the understanding of how an organization structures its information security function, specifically concerning the roles and responsibilities within the context of ISO 27001-2013. The standard, particularly in Annex A. 7 Human Resources Security and Clause 5 Management Commitment, emphasizes clear assignment of responsibilities. When an organization transitions to ISO 27001-2013 and establishes its Information Security Management System, ISMS, a critical step is defining who is accountable for information security. While top management provides commitment and direction, and individual employees have responsibilities for their actions, the core of operationalizing information security often falls to a dedicated role or team. This role or team is responsible for developing, implementing, monitoring, and reviewing the ISMS. The concept of a security officer, or a similar designated individual, is central to ensuring that information security activities are coordinated and managed effectively. This individual typically reports to senior management, facilitating the integration of security into business processes. The other options represent either a broader management function without specific security focus, a reactive approach to incidents, or an abdication of direct responsibility to external parties without internal oversight, none of which fully capture the proactive and integrated approach required by ISO 27001-2013 for the organization of information security. The transition requires establishing a clear point of accountability for the ISMS. Question 28. Considering the significant structural and terminological updates in ISO 27001-2013 compared to its predecessor, how did the revised standards approach to documented information impact an organization's obligation to maintain auditable records and policies for its information security management system? Option A. The 2013 version introduced a strict requirement for all documented information to be in a digital format, prohibiting the use of any paper-based records for audit purposes. Option B. The 2013 version consolidated various documentation types under the umbrella term documented information, granting organizations more flexibility in format and media, while maintaining the fundamental requirement for sufficient documentation to support ISMS effectiveness and compliance. Option C. The 2013 version mandated a complete overhaul of all existing documentation, requiring a new set of mandatory documents that were not previously specified in the 2005 standard. Option D. The 2013 version significantly reduced the number of mandatory documented information requirements, allowing organizations to operate with fewer formal policies and procedures to streamline compliance. The correct answer is B. The 2013 version consolidated various documentation types under the umbrella term documented information, granting organizations more flexibility in format and media, while maintaining the fundamental requirement for sufficient documentation to support ISMS effectiveness and compliance. Explanation: the transition from ISO 27001-2005 to ISO 27001-2013 involved significant changes, particularly in the terminology and structure of the standard, aligning it with Annex SL. For documented information, the 2013 version adopted a broader term encompassing all types of records and documentation required by the standard, replacing the more specific terms like policy, procedures, records, and guidelines used in the 2005 version. This shift aimed to provide organizations with greater flexibility in how they manage their information security documentation, allowing them to determine the extent and format of documented information necessary for the effectiveness of their information security management system, ISMS. The standard specifies that documented information is required for the ISMS to be effective and for compliance with the standard itself. This includes information that the organization determines is necessary for the ISMS and information required by the standard. The organization has the authority to decide the format and media of this documented information. The key principle is that the documented information must be sufficient to support the operation of the ISMS and provide evidence of its conformity. Therefore, when considering the transition, the fundamental shift was in the nomenclature and the emphasis on organizational flexibility in managing its documentation, rather than a reduction in the overall need for documented information. The scope of documented information in ISO 27001-2013 is comprehensive, covering all information an organization needs to maintain and retain for the ISMs to function effectively and to demonstrate compliance. This includes both internally generated and externally supplied information in any format or medium. Question 29. Considering the structural and control framework shifts between ISO 27001-2005 and ISO 27001-2013, which specific control area saw a significant reorganization and emphasis on a foundational inventory process, impacting the overall scope and risk assessment for an organization transitioning its information security management system. Option A. Physical and environmental security by introducing stricter requirements for data center access. Option B. Asset management, particularly the establishment of a comprehensive information asset inventory. Option C. Cryptography, by mandating the use of specific encryption algorithms for sensitive data transmission. Option D. Access control, with a focus on refining user authentication mechanisms. The correct answer is B. Asset management, particularly the establishment of a comprehensive information asset inventory. Explanation. The transition from ISO 27001-2005 to ISO 27001-2013 involved significant changes in the structure and content of the standard. A key alteration was the introduction of Annex A. 5. Asset management, which consolidated and reorganized controls related to asset inventory and ownership. Specifically, the 2013 version emphasizes a more structured approach to identifying, classifying, and managing information assets. Control A. 5. 1. 1 in ISO 27001-2013 mandates the establishment of an inventory of all information assets. This inventory is crucial for understanding the scope of the Information Security Management System (ISMS) and for applying appropriate security controls. Without a comprehensive and up-to-date asset inventory, it becomes challenging to effectively implement controls such as A. 8. 1. 1 inventory of assets and A. 8. 1. Ownership of assets, as they existed in the 2005 version, which were also important, but the 2013 version brought a more explicit focus on the entire lifecycle of asset management. The revised standard also aligns better with other management system standards like ISO 9001 and ISO 14001, adopting a high-level structure, HLS, which includes clauses like context of the organization, leadership, planning, support, operation, performance evaluation, and improvement. This structural change necessitates a review and potential update of the entire ISMS, including the statement of applicability, SOA, and the risk treatment plan, to reflect the new clause structure and control objectives. Question 30. Considering the mandatory requirements for an information security management system, ISMS, transition to ISO 27001-2013, what is the primary purpose of developing a formal communication strategy as mandated by Clause 7.4 of the standard? Option A. To document all internal and external discussions related to the ISMS transition for audit purposes, ensuring traceability of decisions made during the process. Option B. To facilitate the immediate deployment of new security controls identified during the ISMS review by prioritizing communication to technical teams. Option C. To establish a framework for reporting ISMS performance metrics to regulatory bodies, ensuring compliance with data protection laws like GDPR. Option D. To ensure all relevant stakeholders are informed about the ISMS transition, including the nature of changes, their implications, and the updated requirements, thereby fostering understanding and support. Correct answer is D. To ensure all relevant stakeholders are informed about the ISMS transition, including the nature of changes, their implications, and the updated requirements, thereby fostering understanding and support. Explanation. The transition from ISO 27001-2005 to ISO 27001-2013 requires a comprehensive review and update of the Information Security Management System, ISMS. A critical component of this transition is ensuring effective communication about the changes, their implications, and the new requirements to all relevant stakeholders. Clause 7.4 of ISO 27001-2013 specifically addresses communication, outlining the need for organizations to determine the need for internal and external communications relevant to the ISMS. This includes what to communicate, when to communicate, with whom to communicate, how to communicate, and who is responsible for communicating. For the transition, this means establishing a clear strategy that details how information about the updated standard, revised policies, new controls, and any changes to the ISM scope or processes will be disseminated. This strategy must consider the different needs and perspectives of various internal groups, e.g., top management, employees, IT staff, and external parties, e.g., customers, suppliers, regulators. A robust communication strategy will facilitate buy-in, ensure understanding, and support the successful implementation of the updated ISMs, thereby contributing to the overall effectiveness of information security. Without a well-defined strategy, the transition could suffer from misinterpretation, lack of awareness, and resistance to change, potentially leading to non-compliance or a weakened security posture.